James, let me start with you. How would you describe what's happened here?
3 to 6 months ago, I would have said that the NDP were probably a shoo-in to be re-elected. Now I would say it's about an even split over what the outcome will be. I mean, this is dramatic. It's not uncommon, certainly on the free enterprise side of the ledger in BC politics, for there to be shifts. We've had Socreds, Conservatives, BC Reform, BC Liberal, BC United, and now back to the Conservative Party of British Columbia. I think the center-right coalition, broadly speaking, the free enterprise coalition, is pretty agnostic when it comes to label. But when they unite under one tent, they're a powerful political force, and they win most of the elections in British Columbia.
And Shachi, same question to you, just in terms of putting this in perspective, especially for people outside of BC, what would you say?
Well, it definitely represents a pretty historic reset in terms of the fact that this is a requiem for what was the BC Liberals, now BC United, a party that was at one point an undefeatable, indefatigable juggernaut in BC politics that reigned supreme for the better part of 2 decades. And it is no more. What has reformed in its place, almost Terminator 2 style, right? It's the liquid molten metal that just keeps reforming and coming back, is a party that is now going to pose the most significant challenge to the BC NDP since 2017, since they took power back after a very, very long term in opposition. And what's significant this time is that while the BC Liberals / BC United were a center-right coalition, this is very much a right-center coalition. And so we see the party has moved further to the right, this new thing, whatever it's going to be, but it's going to leave the NDP fighting for every vote, particularly in Metro Vancouver, where this thing will be decided. It is very much now a rural-urban battle, a battle divided along age lines and age demographics, and a battle very, very much concentrated in the suburbs outside of the city of Vancouver.
So, Shachi, the plan here, of course, on the part of BC United and a lot of people who support right-of-centre parties, is that their supporters will go to the Conservatives and defeat the NDP. Sounds like you don't think it's as straightforward as that.
Well, to start with, we knew even going in months before this happened, because the conversations between BC United and the BC Conservatives have been going on for months, that about half of BC United supporters, and this was an ever-shrinking base day by day, but among those who were left and saying, yes, they'll stick with BC United, about half said, look, if there's no other choice, we'll move over to the BC Conservatives, no problem. So the big question along the margins now, and this is a game of inches, is what happens to that other half? Do they shrug their shoulders and also migrate over to the BC Conservatives, because for them the prospect of another term under the BC NDP is not palatable to them? Are there those that simply stay home because they feel orphaned? Are there those that also maybe actually cast their lot in with the NDP because their perception of the party under John Rustad, the BC Conservatives, is a party that's too extreme for their tastes? We are now going to see a reintroduction of the culture wars into this campaign, and we are going to see really where does that last remaining 5% of the BC United vote end up going? And that may end up being the deciding factor in who wins this.
James, I would guess the partisan part of you, or your former federal Conservative MP, is happy to see a united right opposition to the NDP. But more broadly, are you concerned about this increased polarization overnight, basically, in BC politics, a very left-of-centre party and an even further right-of-centre party?
Well, I mean, that's frankly been most of the tradition to the sweep of British Columbia's history, right? Is that you have a broad center-right coalition and a broad center-left or relatively center-left coalition of the New Democrats, and then you fight over the middle 10, 20% of the ground. Some of that has gotten blurred with populist politics on the left and right, economics, inflation, and a lot of the cultural issues that Shachi talks about. A lot of traditional New Democrat voters are not particularly pleased with high price of gas and sort of open drug use in the city of Vancouver and elsewhere, and that kind of crosses over that left-right divide. But yeah, look, I think it's healthy for a democracy to have a clear choice and a clear alternative. To Shachi's point, though, that whenever you have a merger like this or a combination like this, you hope when you're on the combination side that 1+1 doesn't just equal 2; it equals 2.5 or even 3. There will be some supporters traditionally of the BC Liberals who may not come aboard, but you hope that there are a lot of people who may have checked out of politics, feeling that the center right has become hopeless, that may not be reanimated to re-enter the race and re-enter their voting habits, and that's where the opportunity is presented to John Rustad and the Conservatives to put forward a meaningful platform with credible spokespeople and potential cabinet ministers, such that British Columbians can think that their vote really matters again, that there is a real competition, and competition is a good thing in a democracy.
Shachi, is it possible that personalities and politics don't matter here, that it's just about a name? I mean, the Conservatives had less than 2% of the support in the last provincial election, but that brand seems golden right now.
It really does seem golden, and it has been a moment to watch the federal Conservatives cut a swath through British Columbia and the battlegrounds. But this is also about issues surrounding the level of dissatisfaction the British Columbians are feeling towards the BC NDP. When you look at the issues that are most important to BC voters, access to health care, cost of living, housing affordability, these are the things that British Columbians are pretty unhappy about. But the big question then becomes, do they feel so strongly that they are going to cross the street ideologically over to the BC Conservatives? And can the BC Conservatives sort of make the case for change? These are the things that are going to define this campaign.
Tough time for incumbent governments. We're seeing that over and over again. And Shachi Kurl, James Moore, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.